Fair use.
Yes, sir. One. Yeah.
How much time do you have?
I'm gonna give you about 15 minutes.
15?
And then it's gonna be open question. More than that, we'll give it to you.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah, okay, I'll say that.
we are pleased to have the opportunity for the Atlanta University Center to reinitiate and revitalize what has been long called town meeting. The 6 presidents of the Atlanta University Center in the fall semester made the decision to revitalize this service to the community of Atlanta and Georgia, as well as to the center. Dr. Robert Brisbane is the chairman of the committee for this year, and he is ably supported by College, Dr. Vincent Harding of Spelman College, and we have an additional person, Dr. Brisbane, is kind of inquiry tonight. I will close by saying that I was told by
That the subject is Black Power and the future of the American Negro. I hope everybody left their weapons outside. We didn't have anybody check you for them. We want to give each discussant up to 15 minutes for a statement, after which they can question each other, and I hope to be able to get some questions from the floor. Our first speaker will be Mr. Stokely Carmichael. You can move that over.
It's better if it's on my left. Just speak up and go right through. And what we wanted to do tonight was to first say we're very happy to be here, and that you ought to know that the reason they closed down the town hall in the first place was because John Lewis, our former chairman, the SNCC, spoke here. And so it's apropos that they should open with the next chairman of SNCC. Now, we want to talk about definitions, the importance of them. We want to talk about institutionalized racism the importance of that, and then the role of the black youth in this country. Now, I'm not going to waste time defining black power, except to say that whenever people move for their liberation, the first necessity is that they be able to define themselves and that they be able to define their own terms. If they're unable to do that, then they will never be able to free themselves. The philosopher Camus notes this on the very first page of The Rebel. He says, in fact, that when the slave says no to the definitions and containment of the master, then, and only then, does he begin to create for himself. Let me give an example. What white people are trying to do in this country is to have us react to their definition of black power and to alienate us from the very slogan that can become a cohesive force inside our community, because black power speaks to us and to nobody else. And that's what you must understand very, very importantly. See, President Johnson can get up and say, we shall overcome, but I'll be damned if he can ever say, I want black power. What that then means is that we will be able to control the momentum and the thrust of our movement, because it is ours. And that's what you have to recognize. Now, what white society does is put us on the defensive to make us apologize. You remember a couple of years ago when black leaders would talk about integration. In their minds would be good schools, good houses, good jobs, etc. And they would get up and say, well, we want to integrate. And some white men would say, you want to marry my daughter? And they start getting scared and say, that's not what we want. We don't want to be your brother-in-law. We want to be your brothers. We don't want to live next in your bedroom. We just want to live next door to you. They were reacting to this man's definition of their term, so that by the time they were finished reacting, they were out the window. They couldn't even come back and be aggressive. Now they ask us in SNCC, about you want to marry my daughter. See, we just say, your daughter, your sister, your mama. The white woman is not the queen of the world. She's not the Virgin Mary. She can be made like any other woman. Let's move on. Let's move on. And that is precisely the same thing they attempt to do with black power. We say black power and they say you mean violence. And so they want to say, no, that's not what we mean. We don't mean violence. We don't mean separatism. We don't mean this. Later, we will be masters of our own term. White society will recognize our terms. They will not define it. That's the first thing you ought to understand in your minds, so that you be crystal clear. Black power is the coming together of black people to fight for their liberation, period. The forms of that will be defined by black people. Black people will look. Now then, the importance of black power in terms of a conceptual program has to do with the types and approaches of racism that exist in this country. There are two types of racism in this country. There is an individual act of racism, and there is what we call in SNCC institutionalized racism. Now, let me give you an example of both and the response of the nation, or most segments of this society, to both of them. If white people bomb a black church and kill 5 black children, that is an act of individual racism. And the entire, or most segments of this society deplores such an act, all right? But now in that same city, Birmingham, Alabama, if not 5, but 500 black babies die each year because of lack of proper food, medical facilities, housing, and thousands more black people are maimed physically, educationally, intellectually, and mentally. That is an act of institutionalized racism. And that is what goes on in every major ghetto of this country, institutionalized racism. Now, this country pretends that it doesn't know about institutionalized slavery and racism, or is incapable of doing anything meaningful about it. And that's what you have to understand. Therefore, the solutions that they present to us are solutions on an individual basis, not a solution to counteract institutionalized racism. So that they say to you that you have to integrate, whatever that means. And that means that all of you should leave here and one at a time, year after year, go over to Georgia, University of Georgia, and then maybe after, 2,000 of you here? Maybe after 1,000 years, after taking 2 of you, then Clark University will stand empty. And that, of course, will be a tribute to the success of integration. Now, what you ought to recognize is that that program is not possible. Not only is it not possible, it is not particularly desirable. We have to maintain our own cultural identity as a people. And while maintaining that cultural identity, we have to fight for our liberation. We cannot sell our culture out. And that is precisely what integration is about. To get up in this society, you can do just what they tell you to do and act the way they want you to act. And that you ought to know from the history of this country that white... And therefore they must castrate him. And of course, finally, you've got the greatest, Muhammad Ali. And we all know his name, including Mr. Ture. And that is precisely what the country must do. So that you have to recognize then that the only way you counteract institutional racism is to build power inside your community to counteract it. You cannot counteract it through individual approaches. That means that the knowledge that you acquire here, you must bring back to the black community to benefit that community instead of going to work for IBM, General Motors, or Gulf Oil, or some corporation like that that does not begin to benefit black people, only benefits you and this country, because it helps to perpetuate the lies about a democracy. So that's, I think, one of the major differences between black power and what they call integration. And it's so-called integration because if you knew anything about integration, you would know it's a two-way stream. It's a two-way stream. And I haven't seen any white people fighting to get into your schools from Georgia. I haven't seen any in Mississippi fighting to go. So what they're doing is draining from our communities the best that we have. Because you know in order to go to their schools, we got to send the best representative we have. And so they take the very best from our schools and send them over there to sit with their uncivilized children. Their parents throw bricks and bottles at us so we can walk through and sit next to them. Later for the white community, let them civilize themselves. We've got our own problems. That's what you ought to do. In the city of Atlanta, we have advocated a political program in terms of independent politics. The population of this city is 40% black, adult. We can control this city. If black people had guts, we would come together and independently organize that force, that 40% force, and while white people were fighting between the Democrat and Republican Party, we would take over this city lock, stock, and barrel. That's black power. That's black power. You ought to recognize how the city lies. When, what's that big-headed fellow's name? Maddox. When Maddox ran against the progressive racist who's now mayor of this city, Ivan Allen, Maddox received more votes in the white community than did Allen. Do you know that? And the Negro leadership of this town told black people to vote for Allen. And it is our votes that put Allen into office. And you call this a progressive town where most of the white people voted for Maddox. And the very first thing that Allen did was to move us out from the Boulevard section and build $1 million stadium and didn't even worry to find houses for us. That's because we are not organized as an independent force to stop the abuses of power that is penetrated upon us. And if we're about to stop them, we must organize ourselves independently. I guess we can stop and go on for questions. I'll just prolong the discussion.
I should like to begin my remarks with an affirmation of faith. I believe in God who made of one blood all races that dwell on the earth. I believe that all men, black and brown and white, are brothers, varying through time and opportunity in form and gift and feature, but differing in no essential particular and alike in soul and in the possibility of infinite development. Especially do I believe in the Negro race, in the beauty of its genius, the sweetness of its soul, and its strength in that meekness which shall inherit this turbulent earth. I believe in the pride of race and lineage itself, in pride of self so deep as to prohibit injustice to other selves, in and his angels, who wantonly work, believe the worst and work to prove it, hating the image which their Maker stamped on their brother's soul. I believe in the Prince of Peace. I believe that war is murder. I believe that armies and navies are at bottom the tinsel and braggadocio of oppression and wrong. And I believe that the wicked conquest of weaker and darker nations by nations white and stronger but foreshadows the death of that strength. Not for pelf or peace, but for life lit by some large vision of beauty and goodness and truth. Finally, I believe in patience. Patience with the weakness of the weak and the strength of the strong, the prejudice of the ignorant and the ignorance of the blind, patience with the tardy triumph of joy and the mad chastening of sorrow, patience with God. These words that I have just read to you were uttered by William Edward Beauregard Du Bois in New York City in 1904. They were for him an affirmation of faith, and they are for me an affirmation of faith. Du Bois, one of the great intellects of this nation, a distinguished social scientist, and my beloved professor. The future of this nation of democracy and that of the Negro is inextricably linked together. The tie between the two cannot be severed without irreparable loss to both. The Negro and these United States are Siamese twins, and to separate them portends death for both. Now, to say anything about the future is risky for anyone except God or a fool. I know I'm not God, and I pray I'm not a fool. We may prognosticate a little if we understand fairly clearly something about history. Let us refer quickly to poverty. There is more poverty in this nation than there needs to be. We can solve the problem of poverty. We can do it technologically. We have the economic strength to do it. The only reason poverty remains with us, we do not have the will to do anything about it. Take the question of education. And I could talk a long time about that, talking merely about Atlanta. Atlanta has gained worldwide recognition on being a very progressive city, and in some sense it is. But Atlanta has not done 1/3, 1/4, 1/10 of what it ought to do and can do in the area of equal education. The distinguished members of the Board of Education of the City of Atlanta continue to mislead us that they are doing all they possibly can to see that Negroes in this city receive equal education. It's just not true. They won't even admit that there are vacant spaces to which Negro children may be assigned by the board. And the beloved superintendent of schools comes up with some educationist jargon that explains away the vacant space. I do not need to take the time, this will probably come out in our question period, about what's happening in housing. I think the mayor called a conference just a few days ago. He had two, really. This was a Negro member of our congregation who said that to me more than 10 years ago. And he said, you notice certain things have not been dishonest. It is simply immoral. If we really wanted to make our city what it ought to be, we would scatter the folks all over town. Let me come to a conclusion now. I would suggest that as Negroes fight their battle, and we've got to fight it, I don't think that there's enough religion in this country to have anybody do right because it's right. So we must fight our battle. But I would hope that as Negroes struggle, we shall not allow white people to pull us down to their level in cruelty and hatred and meanness. We must, I think, point the way to decency and civility, point the way to full humanity of mankind. And one other observation. All minorities in history have had to have allies. None have been able to go it alone. And I think one of the basic questions Negroes must consider is how shall we recruit allies? And I'm not talking about lukewarm folks, because I recall a passage from the Bible which says people who are lukewarm makes God sick on the stomach. Well, they do me worse than that. How shall we recruit allies? This becomes one of the basic strategies which we have. And I would like to suggest to my distinguished colleague here that Negroes in Atlanta do not control this city, and they cannot control it by organization. If you look at the last election, Negroes did not vote for Mr. Lester Maddox. Mr. Lester Maddox got elected without Negroes. The people who control this city are white people. We had an election for a judge. Mr. Hollowell ran in that election. And there were some Negroes and a whole lot of white folks who thought this was the worst thing in the world could have happened. Mr. Hollowell shouldn't have done that. And therefore they said that the judge who ought to have been put out of office had a chance to win in the runoff. Well, he got in the runoff with another gentleman. And then when the runoff was, which was between two white gentlemen, the judge who should not have been elected, and they won more than
Mr. Carmichael, do you have a comment or question?
I have a comment and a question. See, I agree that you need allies to an extent. My disagreement with the major exponents of the coalition theory for black people, notably Mr. Bayard Rustin, is that they never decide upon what terms you coalesce with people. Anyone knows that as a rule of politics that one coalesces on specific issues. You don't get married to an organization for lifetime. Therefore, it is inherent in the black power concept that one organizes independently oneself first, and deciding what is to one's interest, and then one can coalesce with groups if one can find those groups. Now, if in fact we follow Reverend Williams's logic to its conclusion, it then says that in the long run, white people are going to be against us anyway if we move for our liberation and they don't like it. And therefore, what we must do is do it on their terms. Because if we didn't do it on their terms, the whole 60% in Atlanta or nationwide, the whole 90% would come together against us. And in my own feeling, it just absolutely agrees with what I say, that this country is racist from top to bottom, right to left. So that I think that's agreeing with me. Then my only question is I would like to ask you, what is your position on the Vietnam War, given your affirmation by Dr. Du Bois, whom I happen to think is the greatest intellectual this country ever produced?
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Carmichael. I want to thank Mr. Carmichael for agreeing with my principle of our needing allies. I think this represents good judgment. I would be willing to sit with him or anybody else and talk about how we should work out the implications and inferences of the principle, but it's important to recognize that there is the principle. One other observation he made, and everything I've said would indicate that we are in agreement here. This country is racist. Anybody who says it isn't doesn't know anything about it or isn't honest. And it is a racist country. The question and the problem for us is how on earth can we work out a modus operandi in the midst of this kind of situation? And I think that because we are in the minority, there has to be some sort of coalition somewhere, and the terms on which that can be worked out is one that we face from day to day and from problem to problem. We're in agreement there. Dr. Du Bois about what war is, it was my affirmation of faith, and I certainly think that the war in Vietnam represents a kind of stupidity, and it seems to me men of any sort of sanity would hurry up and get themselves together and get out of that war.
Any further comments? You're quite welcome.
No, I think maybe we just throw it out for...
How about you?
I'm ready.
All right, if I can see some hands, Stokely,
It is
go right ahead.
precisely because Dr. Du Bois recognized the humanity of mankind that he gave up on this damn country. It is precisely because he recognized that. And if you are to read Dr. Du Bois' writings after 1904, and you could even start with The Soul of Black Folk, which is 1904, 1905, and 1906, his collective of essays, it shows clearly that he begins to deviate from that conception. He was the man who helped to start the NAACP with the Niagara Convention and left the NAACP over the same ideological questions. It is clear in my mind, it is crystal clear in my mind that what white America wants and her Negro allies is to make black people the moral conscience of this country, and they have no right to do it. This country is immoral. White people made it immoral. It is their job to clean it up. We have to worry about ourselves for a change.
Mr. Carmichael doesn't strengthen his case or anybody else's by saying that he wants to become immoral like other people too, because they are immoral.
No good, baby. It didn't even... I've said very clearly, it is not our job to make America moral, white America. We are to be concerned with us. That is not to say that one imitates onto the level of immorality. It is precisely in the concept of black power that you state black people stop imitating white society, but rather begin to create for themselves, because white society has nothing to offer us. Its entire society is based on what is anti-black, clearly. And that is the trick bag that black people have always followed by trying to imitate white America. That is not to say you stoop to her morality, you forget about her.
You have to speak a little louder, honey. You want to come over here? Go ahead.
I'd really like to ask two questions. First, I'd like to ask Reverend Williams, perhaps I misunderstood what you said. I think I heard you say that the new housing code has been drawn up to cause Negroes to live in one area. And I'd like, you didn't say that. Did you speak anything, did you say anything about the housing code?
No, I said nothing about a housing code. I said some 10 or more years ago, there was a sort of unwritten agreement with certain people in this town that Negroes would live in the West Side.
Oh, okay. And I wanted to ask you also, I thought you said that poverty remains because we lack the will to do something about it. And if you did make that statement, I'd like to ask you to explain this will in that sentence.
I believe what I said was that this nation is rich enough, it has sufficient technological understanding and know-how to eliminate and to alleviate poverty. The only reason poverty remains with us is that the nation lacks the will, power to go ahead and do something about it. And all I mean by will, it wants to do it.
Williams, that you seem to express the desire for the black people of this country to negate the United States.
Poverty, and then I want to comment about your last questions. I think that Dr. Williams is naively incorrect about his assumptions about poverty. Poverty is well calculated in this country. That is why it exists. Period. This is the richest country in the world. If they wanted to get rid of it, they would. They would. Nothing to it. No. There's a difference between will and calculated, because my next statement is the calculators of poverty run this country. That's the difference. That's the difference. You've got to understand that. That means the people who are rich continue to run this country, and they're not going to turn it over to poor people. There's a difference between will. No, will implies that they really want to, but you know, they're sort of nice guys, but they don't have the umption to do it, see? And calculated means that you have it planned that people stay poor, and that the people who run the country have it planned that way. There's a big difference. Now, I say that is precisely the teachings that America teaches black people. And that for us to begin to have a new concept of ourselves, we must negate all of the teachings that white America has taught about black people. That is number one. You then say, number two, that you move within your own group to organize yourself independently first, and then decide what is it your group wants. Then you can move on. In the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, we feel that the third world is going to be important to relationships around this world, because we don't bite our tongue. We say the United States is the aggressor in Vietnam, and will not only be the aggressor in Vietnam, but will be the aggressor in Santo Domingo, the Dominican Republic, South Africa, Ghana, wherever they go. They exploit, rape, and plunder non-white people. Therefore, it is to our advantage to understand outside of the world the relationship then of the non-white world to us, since our philosophy and ideology cannot come from the white world. Our very introduction to this country was that of slavery. We were brought here not for our benefit, for the benefit of white people. The overall economic program of this country in the last 20 years has widened the gap between black people and white people. That means that the overall economic program of this country does not benefit black people. And you can go right on down the line. It just shows that wherever this country has gone, it's moved against us. Against us. The war in Vietnam is against us. McNamara says he's going to draft. It is clear to me that he's putting them on the front lines. And that we have to understand the very people who, you know who Spelman was named after, don't you? Yeah. Well, you know what I think about him, don't you? Well, Rockefeller is the cat who gives a lot of money to this college. You call him a philanthropist. He ain't nothing but a thief. He steals money from South Africa. The Rockefeller Empire controls the Chase Manhattan Bank, which controls the economy of South Africa. And the money that he steals from black people in South Africa, he gives to you, so you can keep your mouth shut. Du Bois said that.
I want to ask Mr. Carmichael a question. He is a very gifted young man at innuendo.
Flattery will get you nowhere.
He is a very...
One of my problems is that our so-called Negro leaders have never taught nonviolence among us, where it belongs, where it should start. We should begin to learn nonviolence among us. But certainly, Dr. Williams, I do not think you can deny the fact that while most students and especially girls, wear their Nat and Nola cream to look light and bright. It certainly has some psychological effect upon them, that whenever your colleges pick homecoming queens, they're always light, bright, and You certainly could not deny the fact that a beautiful woman in this country is someone who has got a thin nose, thin lips, stringy hair, and is white. You certainly cannot deny that. So the opposite of that, which is us, broad nose, thick lips, black with nappy hair, is ugly. And that what you have to do then is to begin to say that white people set their criteria for beauty for the white race. We will define the criteria for beauty for the black race. All right. After having said a definition where black people are not ashamed of themselves, then they can begin to come together. That's what white folk don't want. Dig it? Now, you have them come together as a unified force. See, you're absolutely wrong in your thinking if you think a majority ever rules a country. It is a unified minority. Everybody knows that. And if in Atlanta, Georgia, you got 40% of the people united, you have the largest minority united. The black people in this country represent the largest minority. That's what the real trouble is. We control 100 congressional districts in this country outright by our numbers, and we produce it like rabbits every day. Every day. So that it is crystal clear that by sheer number you have a unified minority. You can control effectively all sorts of political decisions that affect your people as a need, so that you can certainly move then politically. Once you control the politics of your community, you can begin to control the economics. Oh, one other thing is that Dr. Williams just tried to imply, like most white folk do, that, you know, them kids in SNCC, they just yell black power, ain't got no sense. So I just want to read to you some stuff that you don't even read. This comes from what is entitled the 20 largest stockholders' records in member banks of the Federal Reserve System, House of Representatives, Subcommittee on Domestic Finance, Committee on Banking and Currency, Washington, 1964, page. What?
Do you...
I'm sure you wouldn't
I want to ask, do you teach nonviolence?
No. A matter of fact, we say in SNCC, if a white man try to shoot us, we're going to kill him before God get the news. So we say, if white people don't want to be shot, let them keep their hands off of us. Our black parents made us. No white people don't chastise us. Don't chastise us. No, I do not teach nonviolence.
Is your theory economically feasible in regards to...
You don't, first of all, you shouldn't say 10%. I have a thing about that, because I think white folks lie. I know black people more than 10%. I just know it. I just know it. That's right. That's right, Jim. I know we more than 10%, because we in every major city, we in the Army, we in the South, and we still multiply, and we got to be more than 10%. That's the first thing. But secondly, you don't have to be concerned about 10%. You're not asking for this country. You're asking for the right to govern and to rule your community. That's what you're asking. You're asking for white people to stop exploiting you. That's all. So that 10% has nothing to do with it. Don't you believe that people should rule themselves where they live?
You suggest that in many counties in Mississippi, Negroes are in the majority. Is it your proposal that they should take over the government and treat white folks like white folks treated them?
They should take over the government and express their needs, speak to their needs. White people are irrelevant. You're getting poor people in Mississippi to begin to get a decent living. That's what they're concerned about. I'm not concerned about
what would the Negroes who are poor, taking over control as you suggested, what would they do to and for the poor white people down there?
if you are addressing problems for poor, everybody is helped. I mean, I'm not concerned. White people are the ones who did that. We haven't done that.
My question to you is, do you want Negroes to do like white folks have done when they come to power?
I am not concerned about that. I am concerned about one thing.
You know what I'm asking.
I know what you're asking. I'm going to answer you. Black people do not have power. They have been robbed and deprived of that power. Certainly you said that in your affirmation. I am concerned that the people who have stolen the power from them, leave them alone. That is all. What we do with the power when we have it is another question.
You're evading the heart
No,
of my
I am not
question.
evading
Yes,
it.
you
I'm
are.
not, I've told you, I'm not concerned about white people doing anything to them.
But
I'm
then
just
you
concerned
are-
about black people having a decent life. Now, if you're saying that in order for black people to have a decent life, then white people must suffer.
No,
Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm asking you, when you take over in Sunflower County in Mississippi,
That's right.
there are poor white people there. What will you do to them or for them?
We will advocate for the poor. What is for the poor? If they see themselves as part of the poor, they can enjoy their benefits. If they see themselves as whites, they can stay where they are.
We have a few more minutes.
Us. In religion, that's the other boys. They ought to stick to the pulpit, leave politics to us. Well, I think that one of the binding forces of the black community is religion, obviously, and that you just can't wipe it out just like that. You have to recognize it. Now, my own study of the black community shows that the only movement that we have been able to support ourselves that was not a religious movement was the Garvey movement, which had religious...
Truth, and it's not true. Well, all right then.
Let me comment on that. We have a lot of time because I feel good. I don't know about you, brother.
Well, I'm feeling all right. Well, let's go then.
Let me explain to you about allies. It's not your fight anyway. You know, if you think you might really get hurt, you might run, see, unless you're really committed. But now, if those two people are also picking on you, see, and you've got to beat them up because they continue to beat on you, then you're going to fight to knock them off. Then I can fight with you. That's when you fight. They had the land, they had the Bible. When they left, we had the Bible. They still have the land.
I think another 7 minutes. And that will be all. Huh? That's directed to you from somebody behind me, Mr. Carmichael. Quote, how does your idea on black power differ from the teachings of the black Muslims?
Well, let me first say that the Muslims do not call themselves black Muslims. That's a name that was given to them by C. Eric Lincoln in his book and has been picked up by the press. I do believe that it is unethical for me to speak about the program of the Muslims. They sell a paper, it's called Mohammed Speaks, and on the back page of it every week lists their programs and their projects. People should read that. I have stated what the concept of SNCC is via black power, and they should make the analysis. I will not make the analysis for another group. It's unethical.
All right, one or two more questions. The young lady, Miss Brazil.
As one individual to help.
And Malcolm X is on there, and a lot of other things. We just want people to start reading these first. Then there are a lot of other programs.
In fact, directly in front of me in this row. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, go right ahead.
Decency, justice, dignity for all people. I'm terribly against the war in Vietnam. I feel that it's an injustice not only to the Negroes but to the whites of this country. To our common good.
Well, in the first place, I would say that the question of...
That's Mr. Carmichael's word, and let him explain it. I don't use it. I don't use it. That's not my term. That's Mr. Carmichael. He employs it.
All right, let's go and turn this into a...
What you say? Well, why should I? You want to hear the word black? Well, I know how to pronounce it.
Come on home, baby.
Just a minute.
While he is answering that, I wonder if I may just add this. I think it'll only take a minute. Now, if he doesn't want to speak to black power, how does he propose that the black community is going to get the good white brothers to come over and be our allies? He has not spoken to them.
I haven't spoken to that because I think I got sense enough to know that you don't have to use that term to do any thinking.
Yes, ma'am. Please feel free.
If I understood you correctly, and if I haven't, I'd like you to correct me now, you told Dr. Williams that we would have to disregard or ignore the white immorality. Now, to me, if we do this, we've ignored the source of our problem, or we are looking over the atrocities the white man has committed against the black race. If I have misunderstood you, would you please correct me?
Well, I said we should negate their thinking about us. The thinking they've propagated about us should be negated. We should do our own thinking, and that we should not be involved in their atrocities, which is precisely the war in Vietnam. That's what I'm talking about. And the Santo Domingo thing and the way those cats rule the world. See, white America thinks she's God. She rules the world, but she ain't God. Ain't nothing but a man with white skin, that's all. And we're going to have to find that out. The question is whether or not we're going to become involved in that. Are we going to help plunder the world? Are we going to help drop bombs and burn babies in Vietnam? I mean, are we going to go into Santo Domingo and shoot down black people? Are we going to go into Brazil and shoot them down? Are we going to help back all those dictatorships that this country backs, including Franco in France, in Spain, which he then sends planes to help keep the people, black people in Angola, in check? I mean, the country gives all that money to Spain. So that's a whole lot of nonsense they talk about. This country cannot talk about morality, and certainly not to us. She stole us. How can she talk about morality to us? So that we don't even concern with anything she says. We just turn our backs on it. She knows nothing about morality. She's been stealing all her lives. This country is a nation of thieves. Stole this country from the Indians, stole us. Anything she gets her hands on, she steals. The country stands on the brink of becoming a nation of murderers. And either we become a part of it or we say, hell no. I choose to say, hell no. Everybody should make their own choice, because 20 years from now, when Nuremberg comes around, I'm going to be pointing my finger. I'm not going to be on the seat box.
Mr. Carmichael, I certainly think that our country ought to be criticized. I think you ought to criticize it, but let me ask you, to what extent are you a part of this country? Are you a citizen and share any of its benefits, or are you not?
I see myself as a colonial subject in this country.
But I'm asking you, are you a citizen? Do you call yourself
an American? Does a citizen enjoy all the rights that each other citizen enjoys?
Do you consider yourself legally an American citizen?
Well, let me ask you a question.
I asked you, you want to answer that one.
I just want you to clarify for me in my own mind, because I'm a little bit confused.
Stokely, you aren't that naive. You and I both had the same teacher at Howard University, and Eugene Holmes told me that you read a little philosophy while you were there. Now, my question to you is, are you an American citizen? Do you consider yourself a legal citizen of this country?
I am not a legal citizen, because obviously I do not enjoy the rights of all citizens. Therefore, I am not a citizen.
That isn't the question.
I see myself as a colonial subject. A citizen enjoys the rights of the country. I don't see black people enjoying those rights. I think they're deluded when they call themselves citizens.
I've heard you speak for white folks and speak for the United States.
You heard me do what?
Speak for white folks and speak for the United States. What I'd like to know is, when do you begin to speak for black people?
Come listen to me, honey, on Sunday morning.
That's for Cadillac, baby. Come on from there.
Sunday morning, you preach the word of God, don't you?
Come hear me.
I have a comment direct to Mr. Williams, and also a question. Mr. Williams speaks of reason and of logic. If we would follow reason and logic in looking at the history of the development of the Christian religion, we would see a double nature there. And my question leads to this, Reverend Williams. Can you give an example, and it's a two-part question. Can you give an example of any group in history, any nation in history that has thrown off its oppressor or its pain under the foot of someone through meekness? Number one. The second question that leads into this, I fail to see how you could not see what Mr. Carmichael was saying in regards to citizen. If, logically, it would seem that he does not enjoy whatever those conditions are that you define citizen, how can he really call himself a citizen? Those are two questions.
And before you answer the question, look, I need your name. You better work for SNCC.
The first part of your question, I suppose you really don't want me to start talking about the history of the Christian faith and this sort of thing. Now, let me make one observation. When I speak, I know what I'm talking about, whether you understand that or not. And it doesn't, I want to make this clear, and it doesn't matter one bit to me whether you understand it. I'm sorry that you don't, and I hope that if you do a little reading and some of the things Stokely suggests and other things too, it might be helpful at that point. Now, let me get to the point. If you listen, you might be informed. There is no instance where a group with power has voluntarily given it up. There's no history of that. Now that question, though, that observation is aside from what is the utilitarian value, what is the pragmatic significance or usefulness of life's commitment on the part of one in his struggle for his just ends. This is what I call religion. Now, if you're talking about some non-citizens, yes, not all.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes, this is the last comment and the last question. I'm sorry, you may remain here after the cameramen who have to get their gear out of here. These men have been facing, they've got to go on out. Just a minute. We have started the town meetings. We want to continue them, but we have to do it according to a formula.
The more you think you're a citizen, the more you're going to love and fight for this country. When you begin to understand your colonial subject, you're not going to fight for it anymore. You're going to fight here to become a citizen. That's what you got to understand.
Well, we thank you all for coming. Those who want to remain are quite privileged to do so. Our next meeting will be announced shortly. It should be about March 9th. And we hope it is just as interesting. Will the people in this door, let's get the...
Okay.
Thank you.